Welcome to Countdown to Game Day, covered by State Farm. Less than an hour after Auburn's midweek win over South Carolina on Wednesday, Tiger fans started setting up camp to secure their spot inside Neville Arena for tonight's showdown against Coach Cal and the Cats. That's almost 65 hours of camping out on the plains, but will it be worth it? This is remarkably a Kentucky team that sits at sixth place right now in the SEC standings with 6 games to go after this weekend. Welcome into Studio E alongside my good friend Harry Lyles Jr. I'm Sam Ravech. Great to have you along with us for the next 30 minutes leading you up to a 2-hour college game day. Not one, they moved to 2 hours today, which means we are a little bit earlier. A month away, too, from Selection Sunday. We will hear from Joe Lunardi in just a bit. He will join us in studio. But let's start with Kentucky here, Lyles, because the expectations every single year are there for Kentucky to not only make like the Final Four, but win the whole darn thing, right? Yes. They haven't been to the Final Four since 2015. What do you make of Kentucky this year and their expectations going forward?
You know, the expectations are going to be there whether or not they should be or not, right? I mean,
regardless,
that's just how the folks in Lexington operate. The thing to me that's been so different about them this year, or at least the thing that stands out to me, is this seems like a team historically that John Calipari would get the most out of. Like, this is one of the teams, they're one of the best teams offensively. They shoot the three ball just about as good as anybody, and we'll get to that later. But their problem is on the defensive end of the floor. Like, all that offensive stuff does not matter if you're not getting stops on the end of the floor. And so now you've got a fan base that is riled up anyways, win or lose. And it is 15 times worse because I think Kentucky is perhaps the most frustrating team in the country this year because of how good they can be and how so not good they are so often.
Right. And it's interesting. Our friends at ESPN Analytics give Kentucky exactly a 15% chance of winning this game here tonight. But the Auburn fans certainly will like that. They are undefeated at home this year inside Neville Arena, a perfect 13-0. And one of the big reasons has been because of the atmospheres that have been built there. And Christine Williamson, our very own, is on the ground there in Auburn, inside Neville Arena, with thousands of her closest friends. Christine, it's over to you.
I think my best friend here is this guy with the coconut shell bra on. I don't know where he got that from. But yes, it is very rowdy here. Sam, you said a little bit ago that they have been out here since Wednesday. I would like to add a little asterisk to that. I actually talked to 3 guys that were here 7 minutes before the South Carolina game ended. So they've been out there for a minute. Welcome to the jungle. I mean, this is exactly what we expected when we came to Auburn. It has been absolutely lit so far.
Across the College Football Playoff National Championship. We understand you got to hang with Janai Broome. How did that go, and how do you think that might go for him this afternoon?
Okay, so I do want to say a couple of things. First of all, I have some Toomer's Lemonade. We got to drink Toomer's Lemonade. It's really good. It's the world's best lemonade. Okay, I don't know how they make it, but it was very tasty. So you're going to see my piece with Janai a little bit later. I want to just bring your attention to something. Janai is going to have a chain on. It's a broom. Okay, it makes sense. His name is Janai Broome. He said it's his second piece. He has a jeweler. His first piece says JB4, and I was like, yo, when I was in student athlete, I didn't have a jeweler. Like, he's another level, but it was a really good conversation. Janai is a really great guy. I can't wait for you guys to see that one.
Thank you, Christine. We appreciate it. We'll get it back to you in just a bit. By the way,
see you guys later.
By the way, just completely dodged the Tampa question. So
she did.
What's up with that?
And you know what's crazy? She brought up that she was a student athlete and somehow did not mention Miami because it's not like she tells us every chance that she does or gets rather.
We will hear more from Christine in just a little bit. So the huge game, NCAA tournament implications down there in Auburn tonight with Auburn and Kentucky. So we figured that we will play a huge game before the big game here in studio. We'll play categories. That's right, an old-fashioned game of categories, but Kentucky and Auburn edition. So without further ado, let's start with words that begin with the letter D, Lyles, that describe either of these two teams.
Yes, and I mentioned we were going to talk about this Kentucky defense. They are 125th in adjusted defensive efficiency. That's not good, man. No. They're giving up 79 points per game. 327th in Division I. There are 362 teams that play Division I basketball. Like, that, to me, is inexcusable, to be quite honest with you. And it's like I said earlier, like, for as great as they are on the offensive end of the floor, so good that it just doesn't matter if you're not getting stops on the end of the floor.
Defense is a good one. And again, like, it's strange because they also are like 4th in the country in blocks. And that's what leads to a lot of their transition game for Kentucky. But if they don't get blocks, their opponent's probably scoring on them. I'm going to go with the word depth because we're working with words that start with letter D. I'm going to go depth. Look, when you look at the depth for both of these teams, they both rely on their benches a lot. But they do it in different ways. For example, Kentucky gets about 30 points per game from their bench every single game, but it's really from 2 players, and that would be with what Rob Dillingham does and Reed Sheppard. They average about 27 points per game off the bench between the 2 of them alone. So they have productivity, but it's coming from the majority of those 2 freshmen who, by the way, could be lottery picks this year. Certainly Dillingham is one of them. One consistent with Coach Cal's teams is that they are all talented. Dillingham, like we said, is a lottery pick. Reed Sheppard's a top 10 pick. And then you go DJ Wagner, Justin Edwards, the 7-footer Aaron Bradshaw. These are all guys that are going to go in the early rounds, which makes it all the more inexcusable how poor the defense has been. They've also been injured for quite a bit this year. I don't want to make an excuse because you look at a team like UConn, like they've missed players this year, but they haven't missed a beat. That's the biggest difference. Now, let me just say quickly on the other side for Auburn, their depth, too, is much more vast in how many players they use. They actually average about 36 points per game off their bench. Auburn's bench scored 39 points in the win over South Carolina. And just by comparison, South Carolina's bench scored 1.
My God.
1 bench point. So, in essence, when Auburn is playing great defense, they didn't allow a single field goal to their bench. And they've been playing really well. So, last one here, dimes. Auburn is a great team moving the basketball. So too is Kentucky, but they really rely on transition, like we said. Auburn has a lot of half-court sets that they can work. They are 8th in the country with a 1.7 assist-to-turnover ratio. In the South Carolina game, neither of their 2-point guards had a turnover. Couple that with the fact that Kentucky's defense, as you laid out very well, Lyles, has struggled to force turnovers. They're 161st in the country, forcing about 12 turnovers a game. And Auburn leads the SEC with 18 assists per game.
Yeah, that could make it a very, very long game for Kentucky, especially if they're on as good as they are, because we know it's not likely that Kentucky is going to decide to play defense on any given night.
All right, next category for our categories game is the number 3.
Yes.
Anything to come to mind there? Number 3?
That Kentucky 3-point shooting.
Yeah.
Now, so let's talk about some math here, okay? Because technically speaking, Samford is first in 3-point percentage at 40.73%. Kentucky is 40.72. Don't worry about that second decimal place. Like, if you're a young man watching, young woman watching, like, second decimal place,
right.
whatever. Unless your teacher says to, then fine. If you're an adult, you probably don't even know what I'm talking about, which is fine. But this Kentucky team, man, this, again, is why it's so frustrating, because they're so good shooting that 3 ball. Reed Sheppard is their highest percentage shooter, right? And then Antonio Reeves, he's going to chuck it up, man.
He is.
Like, he's going to get those shots off. So this is how they make their money on offense. If they can start playing a little bit of defense, some of those shots get a little bit more wide open. Is Kentucky going to do that for themselves this evening? Who knows? But that's where their bread and butter is.
Sticking with that trend too, Lyles, Kentucky is the only team in the country that has 3 players that have made more than 45 threes on the season. You mentioned, obviously, Reed Sheppard, what he's done. Dillingham is another guy that chucks it up, too. He's made 46, and Sheppard's made 54, Reeves with 62. So they can shoot threes. Yeah. That hasn't been a question, and neither has the conversation surrounding talent. Like, this is a talented team.
It's there.
It's just, can they get a couple more stops on the defensive side? All right, our last category here is going to be doubles and duos.
Yes. Doubles and
duos for Auburn and Kentucky. I'll start with this one here, Lyles. Auburn is 13 at home. We've already said that so far in this show. 13-0 at home, but they have won all 13 games by double figures, which is ridiculous. It's the first time that has happened since the 1998-99 season, when they won 16 straight home games by double figures. So this is a different team. When that crowd is there, we saw it with Christine. They add some life down there into this team. They're a different team at home than they are on the road. We saw that as evidence when they went down to Gainesville last weekend. Good bounce back against South Carolina in the midweek. So that's what I got for doubles and duos. What do you got, Lyles?
I got to go with Janai Broome and Jalen Williams.
Yeah.
And so I've got a problem here because they dubbed themselves the Splash Brothers after scoring 44
I don't know about that.
combined against South Carolina, listen, it's cease and desist, okay? like on behalf of the Golden State Warriors, like, yes, you went 9 of 12 from three-point range in that game, which is awesome, but like maybe we're like the Misting brothers or something like that. You know, like let's sort of build this up and we'll get to that point. But man, did anybody have a better win last week? Or honestly, there have not been many better wins during the season than Auburn and what they did to South Carolina last week. Right? Like if you're coming into this game against Kentucky, like you are feeling extremely good about what you got going on.
Yeah, it was a beatdown. I mean, there's no other way to put it. And South Carolina actually had been a good team on the road up until that point, but Auburn just kind of took some of their anger that they had from the Florida game out on South Carolina, unfortunately.
A lot of it.
All right, that concludes our categories game. This is a huge game, like we said, with NCAA tournament implications, but it is not the only big game that we have on today's slate. When you look up and down, weekend after weekend, we continue to build towards Selection Sunday, which is about a month away. Kansas on the road at Oklahoma. The Jayhawks have lost 5 of the last 6 road games. Remarkably, they still have a chance to move on to the one line. We'll talk to Joe Lunardi about that in just a little bit. Number 9 Duke on the road goes to Tallahassee. And there's some weird things that happened at the Tuck. All right, now let's check out today's Magic Moments covered by State Farm. Very few conferences this season have a larger pulse at the bubble than the Mountain West. So far, they have kind of been the best in the West. Take a look at some of the big moments. San Diego State on the road, taking up San Jose. Jay Powell with the huge block there. And then senior forward Jaden Ledee would have a huge game. Finished with 31 points, 10 boards for the win. Entering the weekend, actually, San Diego State is the only lock from this conference, according to our friends at Bracketology. San Diego State will win this one 81-78, Lyles.
And we know they're tough come tournament time. And just days later, Utah State down 86-82 with 14.3 seconds left. Guard Darius Brown II would knock down a 3 to put the Aggies down 1. And away from the play, UNLV would be called for a foul, sending, great name science name here, by the way, Great Osborne to the line. He would make both free throws, giving Utah State the lead. And the win, the Aggies would go on to win that one 87-86.
And then we'll take it all the way back to November. Now, Mountain West had a very good non-conference, and that included a huge win from Colorado State and Isaiah Stevens. They would break their 22-game losing streak versus top 10 teams in a huge way. They knocked off Creighton, at the time was number 8, by 21 points. And Colorado State, one of the better shooting teams in the entire country. They've also been one of the biggest surprises in the country. They're currently projected as a number 7 seed in the NCAA tournament by our good friend Joe Lunardi.
Those mid-majors that could shoot, you don't want to see them in the tournament. February 13th, here's the name for you, Jamal Mashburn Jr., we're all getting old, knocked down 2 clutch three-pointers, the first with 1:13 left to tie the game at 80, and another one with 20 seconds left to take the lead and give New Mexico a huge win over Nevada after the Lobos dropped the 2 previous meetings. That's a big win for you right there.
Yeah.
You got to have those. You
got to have them. And I feel like we've been trashing Nevada here on this segment. So let's show Nevada a little. Is it Nevada or is it Nevada?
You know, depending on the feeling, right?
All right, we'll go with Nevada.
Yeah.
Why not? Keenan Blackshear had a huge game for Nevada, 22 points, including 8 in an overtime win to give the Wolfpack the dub. They beat Utah State prior. It was the first time in back-to-back games that they would actually win games over ranked opponent. Those were today's Magic Moments, covered by State Farm.
This is your first time trying the OG Tumors Lemonade. Let's try it. How would you describe it?
It's very lemony, it's very sweet, a little sour, but it's, unique.
It tastes like you're drinking an actual lemon with a bit of sugar. I would imagine that throughout your entire life, people have been mispronouncing your name when they see it on paper. How do you feel about that? Sour, sweet?
Sour. Some people mess it up, but some people get it right, like John I, but that's still an effort. That makes you kind of sweet.
Janai, everybody. Stop calling him Johnny. Stop calling him John I. It's Janai. You went viral not too long ago.
Stops for a quick word with Morgan Freeman courtside.
As I'm walking away, I just feel like a grab. And I turned around to see who it was. I saw Morgan Freeman. So it kind of changes things a little bit. I'm a big movie guy, so I couldn't do him like that,
If you were to describe your team as a lemonade flavor, what would it be?
Like kiwi. Check it. it's one of the more exotic sour fruits, Our team is very diverse, different, a lot of crazy personalities, a lot of different people, but it blends well. It might not look appealing, but when you try it, it's pretty good.
Cheers.
All right, we now welcome in the man himself, ESPN bracketologist Joe Lunardi joins us in Studio E, also known as Joey Brackets, of course. It is now coming up on
months from today,
right? We're talking about teams that will make it, teams that won't make it, teams that are on the bubble. We'll have all of those conversations here today. But let's start here. We continue to see upset after upset this year, right, Joe? Like ranked teams going on the road, unranked, it doesn't matter. Everybody is losing
at a historic
rate.
Yeah. And nobody knows why.
And okay, nobody knows why. But like, how has it been for you trying to piece this whole thing together? Because Harry and I are lucky to get emails from you every single morning.
Love it.
And but not everybody else gets to see it. And there's been a lot of movement that you've had to deal with this year.
Certainly there has been. Now, I would step back and say to you, road teams still win in college basketball 70% of the time. Because, I mean, it's hard to win on the road.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Right? We're going to see it today in all the marquee matchups. The fact that so many ranked road teams are losing at unranked road teams seems a little bit of an anomaly to me. But in terms of my process, it's built for team movement up and down the seed list.
Okay.
It's happened more often, but the process is in place. And I just look at it kind of in wonderment sometimes. I remember weekends being up here where all 4 number 1 seeds lost on the same day.
Right.
The same Saturday, the same weekend. And we show up Monday with a new bracket and nothing changed. Because if all you're doing is standing still and nobody catches you, right? So there's been a lot of that.
Okay.
Last weekend I did Dayton went from 18th to 16th in the polls after a loss because everyone around them lost more or lost worse. So there's a context to
for sure. And speaking of context, so I'm based in Atlanta, Georgia. So I hear a lot of SEC and ACC folks being like, hey, like just because our conference is eating, themselves apart, the Big 12 does it too. In your estimation, how far ahead is the Big 12 compared to everybody else? Because I think some people think that we might be overvaluing them because it's like, okay, well, they get to beat up on each other and they still get more value out of that as compared to those other 2 conferences. Like, how far ahead are they in your mind?
Well, here's the macro answer, okay? Every conference eats each other because every time a league game is played anywhere, someone wins and someone loses.
Sure.
Period. No league goes 2-0 in a league game.
Right, exactly.
Having said that, I think the Big 12 and the SEC have separated. And been taking some heat for the other league that gets talked about in Atlanta for not giving the ACC as much love. But just look at seeding. In recent years, we've had multiple number 1 seeds in the same year out of the Big 12. And last year, 2 of the last 3 years, the best ACC team was a 4. Like, that's not a small difference.
Right.
You have to post high-quality wins and put up, frankly, high-quality efficiency metrics during the full length of the season to get that kind of separation.
Okay. Let's talk about the 1 seeds because this is always a hot topic debated this time of year. And we've argued on this show who's actually the best team in the country. I know you have had Purdue now at the number 1 overall spot for a little while now. UConn fans may not like it, but when you look at the resume.
I heard that last night
you did?
out to dinner.
Yes, I figured you might.
Right here in bucolic Bristol.
Of course.
Yes.
Explain why Purdue and not UConn, and also maybe why people are underestimating Houston.
Purdue has a stronger resume. I have no idea if they're better at basketball. And we're not going to know until, hopefully, we get to see them play.
Right.
Like, what if we had a great tournament all the way through, and that was the last game? Sign me up.
I'm fine with that.
Like, who's turning that down?
Right.
UConn has more quad 4 wins. That's lowering their value on paper. I suspect if the two teams played tomorrow on a neutral court, I don't know. I'm not an expert at this. UConn maybe a point and a half. I'm just that's my eye test, so to speak. And there's still a month to go.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe Purdue has an injury. I'm not wishing it on them, but UConn's dealt with it. You touched on it in the last segment.
Yeah.
And those two have separated. Houston and Arizona are next. They're very close. And then there's a gap.
Right.
There's really not a 2 seed. Marquette, if they win today,
That was going to be one of my questions.
okay, then let's revisit the conversation at 5 o'clock Eastern.
Sure.
Okay. But that would also be based on what Tennessee does and what Carolina does, et cetera. It's unusual to have kind of the separation be exactly after 4 teams.
Yep.
Most years, maybe we've got 3 teams with a number 1 seed resume, or 5 or 6, right? It just so happens that today, a month out, that's the way the math is in 2024. I think that's just an accident and an excuse for me to go to bed about 20 minutes early.
And with Champlain coming up, in about 2 weeks, which conference tournament is going to have the biggest ramifications with the tournament coming up?
Well, interestingly, after dumping on the ACC, if you will,
Look at that.
a lot of teams are going to have an opportunity to make a statement. Because let's be honest, the middle teams in the SEC and the Big 12, they're in no matter what. They're going to the tournament. But if you're Wake, if you're Pitt, if you're Syracuse, if you're Florida State, if you're any of those, next tier teams in the ACC, you need a 2 or 3 day winning streak just to get attention. So I would go ACC for conference tournament intrigue, and with a high honorable mention for the Big East, because what a bubble that is.
Yeah.
Butler's just in, and then
Everybody else.
half of the next 8 teams, St. John's, Providence, Seton Hall, Villanova, Xavier.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Georgetown and DePaul aren't going to make it.
Probably not.
Yeah, probably not.
Probably not.
Hard to believe I get paid to say that.
You get paid for a lot of things. Joe Lunardi is going to be here, obviously, for the next month, basically living in the basement of ESPN, getting ready. And I feel like we have to make a quick PSA announcement. Joe does not pick the bracket. This is a yearly thing. Joe does not he's not there on Selection
I don't have
Sunday.
a vote.
He doesn't have a vote.
Stop calling.
But
You could Venmo me, though. I'll take the bounty.
That's right.
He's right here. He can't get away.
Literally, while we were talking, a coach called.
There we go. Well, we'll let him go. Joe,
We're not going to name names.
Okay, don't name any names.
But it rhymes with no.
No, we don't. We appreciate you joining us, Joe. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Now it's time for On the Road, presented by Best Western. We're obviously here in Auburn, Alabama. This is the jungle. Now, Jay Will, I talked to 3 guys earlier.
Okay.
They said that they had been camping outside since 7 minutes before the South Carolina game ended. So they were out there for a minute.
3 days, 4 days.
That's a long time. They're right there. They're right there. Yeah,
I like the dedication.
Yeah, pretty
I like
solid.
the dedication. I mean, for a game of this magnitude, you have a chance to own the SEC against Cal and Kentucky. I want to see that commitment from the fans. I want to see it tonight from the fans. That's what I need to see.
They've definitely shown up today. Okay, so one thing that we've seen this college basketball season is a lot of top 10 teams losing. We've talked about this a lot, right? What exactly do they need to do in order to keep that, to not make that happen anymore?
For top 10 teams not to lose?
Yeah.
I think it's all about defending home court. I mean, for most teams, right? And I think the issue we have in college basketball, with the exception of Purdue and UConn, I don't know what I'm going to get every single weekend.
Yeah.
Like, I really don't. I mean, if it's North Carolina losing to Syracuse, if it's Cal and Kentucky losing to random opponents, I think this is the year where we have so many incredible teams, but the door is so wide open for teams to have a legitimate chance to get to a Final Four. I firmly believe it's all about being hot at the right time of the year. If a team like Auburn can be hot going into the SEC tournament, you tell me there's not a reason why Auburn can't be in the Final Four.
They agree with that. Okay, so Selection Sunday, it's about a month away. What teams do you expect to be selected on Selected Sunday.
Oh, all the 64?
All 64.
All 64 teams? I mean, look, I think a lot we're going to find out in the dog days of February.
Yeah.
I think these kind of games are critical. I think seed line is one of the most important things, right? And I often joke around when everybody's like, oh, okay, well, how about this team? Can they win it? And I'm like, yeah. One of the reasons we won it my sophomore year because we looked at the bracket.
Right.
We got blessed with a really good bracket, right? So it's also about what your seed line is and what your bracket is, what your region is, who's in that region, who gives you the best path to the Final Four.
Okay, let's talk about the opponent today because we have Kentucky coming to town, right?
I love it. Gotta love being booed.
We went to Kentucky. We went and saw Kentucky earlier this year. Now, obviously, they were playing really well, and then they lost 3 of their last 5. What do they have to do in order to change that for the Wildcats?
They got to defend. I mean, one of the issues that doesn't really get discussed a lot from fans' perspective is just like when you're a young player, you're a freshman in college, you have no idea what sustained excellence is on the defensive end. Number one, your conditioning is not the level. All these kids are coming being McDonald's All-Americans, being top high school players. They didn't play any damn defense in high school. What you thought you were doing, strapping up, locking people up, you're not really doing that. All of a sudden, when you have a scouting report and you're doing that for full 40 minutes of a game where you're trying to execute the scouting report in the second half, that takes great conditioning, but that takes also great mental conditioning. And I think we're seeing a young team that's trying to find their way, once again, for Cal, which is a subject we'll discuss today.
Yeah, for sure.
Having another young team, can they find their way at the right time of the season to really hit their stride?
There was a Kentucky fan out here, and you guys were telling him to go home. Where's our Kentucky fan? Where did he go?
They're all the way up there.
All the way up there?
They're up there, yeah. Yeah, they got booed.
Okay, so Auburn has been pretty good at home, obviously. It's the jungle. What does Kentucky need to do in order to get a win today here?
Oh, they got to keep guys like Broome and Jay Will.
Yeah.
He calls himself the original Jay Will, but I'm the older one. But I will give him the name as long as he continues to play well.
You can't be the original for 1 second.
Well, every time I call a game of his, he plays out of his mind. So maybe this is something indicative of tonight. But I think, look, we saw a team get second chance opportunities against Kentucky like Gonzaga, right? And I think that's what Auburn has to do. Defensively, they have to be elite. They have to keep their guards out of the lane, and they got to dominate them on the boards. If they could dominate them on the boards and keep them out of fast break opportunities, I think Auburn has a legitimate chance to win this game. We're stirring the pot.
They're not happy about it. They're not happy about it. Okay, so should I ask the question, what does Auburn need to do to get a win today?
Regardless, this thing to be elite. I mean, look, if they can get second chance opportunities on the glass, that's great. I said it during Sports Center, though. One thing I see as a guard when you play against Kentucky, if I'm in the side pick and roll, they're big sit back. Literally, like if the pick and roll is out here, come up with me on the court for a second. Let me show you.
Oh my
this
gosh,
team.
yes.
If the pick and roll is right here, okay? The guard, the bigs guarding the pick and roll, all the way back. Keep going, keep going, keep going. They're going to be sitting there. So the pick and roll is out here. If I come up that pick and roll, if you're there, I'm going to have all day. I'm going to have shots. I can get into the gaps. I can do all these different things because they play in semi-drop coverage. If Aiden Holloway and Trey Donaldson can have big games and make sound decisions, Auburn should not have an issue with this game. But if they don't, they'll find themselves in a dogfight with Kentucky having a legit chance to win.
All right, we'll see if they're able to get it done. Thanks for the demonstration there. That was a lot of fun. We should do that more.
That's what I'm saying. Get you on the court, get some fans out here.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Okay, that was On the Road presented by Best Western.
Christine J. Will out on the court, huh? How about
Love
that?
it.
Just drawing up plays.
Absolutely love it. You know, and Christine, obviously natural out there because her mom, big basketball player.
Christine will love that, no doubt. We got a couple minutes left here. This is a big one coming up. We haven't talked about UConn Marquette in depth yet, Harry, but this is probably one of the biggest marquee matchups of the entire weekend, this weekend. Top 5 matchup in Hartford tonight. A couple thoughts on this game and maybe the implications for both sides.
Yeah, you know, the thing that stands out to me about UConn this year is they feel very similar to last year in the sense that they're good right now, and they look like if they didn't get better, you could still pick them to win the national championship, and yet they still have room to improve. And they're probably going to get better. And I think one of those steps starts tonight against a Marquette team that makes you work, right? They're not the biggest team in the country. They're not the most athletic, but they're going to play really good defense. They're going to give effort on every single play, and they're going to give you a hard time. And so this matchup tonight, I'm really looking forward to it just because you've got two teams that are coached well and play hard.
Really hard to believe that this is the first top 5 matchup in Big East play since 2018.
Crazy.
Which is just wild to me considering how great the Big East has been. But it is going to be an epic Saturday of college basketball. Once again, just a month left in the season until Selection Sunday. Enjoy College Game Day. Thanks for watching Countdown to Game Day, covered by State Farm.